So I believe I've told everybody, well, if you don't know, I lived in New York for 13 years, and now I've lived here for 10 years. It's been a while, yeah. I know I tell the same stuff over and over. But anyways, I work from home. And yeah, I work from home. Well, I actually, just the last few months, I don't work from home. I now work in an office downtown, which, yeah, that's how I roll. So in any case, I actually, before New York, actually grew up in Southern California. And so I am a product of just my mother and just my father. And my father's name is Candelario Cortez, so I am Mexican. And my mother's name is Mary Young. It's very... But anyways, they split. So my mom had another daughter as well, but my dad, the cute little Mexican little hombre that he was, he liked to fuck a lot. So I've got 2 older brothers, then there's me, and then I have 4 younger siblings, and I'm close with all of them because my mother is amazing, but I was never quite very close with my dad. And so when I was like 3, or who I call him my poppy, he's like, because I puppy, like, just that's the worst joke ever. But anyways, he's Mexican, and so I called him Poppy, and then I called my stepdad, who came into my life when I was 3, I called him Dad. So there's Poppy and Dad. And so I basically grew up in Southern California, knowing all of my siblings, and kind of, you see your Poppy, and he gives you $5, and then you see him 6 months later, and he tells you the most beautiful thing in the world, and you really love him, but really he's not doing anything to raise you as the human I am today. So, but my dad did, and he's really great, except for when him and my mother split up when I was 15 years old. He sort of fell off the face of the earth as well. So while we love him and we think he's great, he sort of marries other women, and he gets involved with these bitches and whatever. Actually that made him sound cooler than he is. He really just married a bitch, and we hated her. That's pretty much what happened. But actually, him and my mom, they had a child together, and her name is Nika. And so I was raised with my mom, my dad, and my sister Nika, who is also my half sister. And so we were just this little family. So when we broke up, it was weird. Like, it was like my dad and mom split up. So now fast forward to, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. My mother calls me, and sort of the worst has happened. And I'm working from home, and she gives me a call, and she says, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Yeah, because I'm working from my living room. What do you think I'm doing?" And she said, "Your puppy died." And I was like, "Oh, all right, okay, thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later." And that's what I did. Now this man actually, while that sounds like, oh, I have no connection to him, actually in my adulthood, when I moved to New York, every time I went home to California, he would make sure to come and see me, and he would tell me about his life, and he would tell me about how much I reminded him of his sister, his beloved sister who had passed away, and he would tell me about my older brothers and what they were like when they were younger, and he told me about the time that he got into an altercation with another gentleman in San Felipe, and they had, I forget what they're called, but like, you spar, and then one of you has to leave if you lose the fight. So my dad lost the fight, and he had to head out of town, or else that guy's family was going to kill him. So he told me that story. So I got to know about him. He told me about how much he loved music, and how much he loved playing in the little salsa band, and how awful he was, but he loved every second of it. He told me how much he loved my mother, but they weren't right for each other. And I was the best thing that came from that relationship. And he told me all of these amazing things. So while he didn't raise me, he's my dad. And it was very cool to get to know my puppy in my adulthood. So when my mother told me he died, I sort of knew it was kind of coming. Oh, he also told me his new wife didn't speak English. And I don't speak Spanish, and my dad can't hear. So there's this great story of how we would visit. And so So she would say something, and then I would say something. Like I can understand Spanish. I could understand Spanish. I could understand what she was saying, but I couldn't say anything back. So I'd tell my father, and he'd go, "Huh? Okay." I'm like, "Dad, you're no help. You suck." Anyway, so when my mother called and said my father died, I was like, "Well, that happens. You know, people die, and all right." So I hang up the phone, and then I just went back to work. You know, what am I gonna do? He died. I was just do your thing. Yeah, so like an hour and a half later, it hit me, and I basically didn't stop crying for a year. And that's a true story. And so it was kind of interesting. I called who was my boyfriend at the time, Nathan. I called him and I was like, "You're gonna need to come home." He came home, and I literally cried for a year. I couldn't breathe for a year. I couldn't think for a year. I didn't know that I needed closure. I didn't know any of that. So this thing happens where the grief is pretty big. So you know when you're going through grief, you actually think you're like 3 months in, you're like, "Psh, I got this down, what, motherfucker?" Yeah, no, you don't. You don't have it down. So this one day, I am vacuuming my house, and Nathan is out of town. It's just me and my dog. I'm vacuuming the house. I'm cleaning all the things, and you know how you like listening to music, and you're vacuuming, and you're dusting, and you're cleaning, and life is great. And then it hits me. So my dad, who is not my poppy, my sister's dad also, her biological father, and the three of us, we haven't been close in very long, and Mika has sort of reached out to me and said, "I'm really sad that our dad doesn't talk to me as much as he should." And I'm like, "Yeah, that makes me really mad because my biological dad died, and I don't have that option, and that's really shitty that he doesn't call you." And so through that week, I'd sort of been thinking about it, and I was vacuuming, and then I was crying because grief hits you in a weird space at a weird time when you're vacuuming or dusting and just minding your own business, listening to Limp Bizkit on a Saturday afternoon. And I'm hysterical crying, and now I know why I'm crying. I'm crying because I cannot speak to my dad, but my sister can, and he's such a douche right now that he can't give her a call. And I start yelling into the ceiling because it's like a really big house, and then there's like a ceiling, and then there's more house, and then the sky. So I think that him and God can hear me. And I tell him, "You better fix this. If you did nothing for me in my childhood, you did nothing. You didn't give me $1. You didn't raise me. You didn't do any of that. You are going to fix this, and you are going to make this happen. And I promise you." That happened on a Sunday, and on a Wednesday, my dad called both me and my sister, and the following year came to visit us. So I would just like to say that if you think that your loved ones can't hear you, just ask for something like that. Thank you.